Okay, good morning, everybody in the room, wide awake, and on the stream, if we've got any viewers, good morning to you as well, chaps. Tim Peake's Principia, I think is the correct pronunciation, mission. This for, does everybody know of Tim Peake going to the ISS? Am I preaching to the converted? Well, some nod, some not. Tim Peake is the first UK astronaut proper. He's an ESA astronaut, but comes from the UK. He's an ex-military helicopter pilot, I believe. He's a good guy. I have had the brief pleasure of meeting him very, very briefly, but I think he's going to be a really good ambassador for science and technology and stuff. His mission is primarily his mission is science, but there's a lot of education in it, as education outreach that I'll mention in a moment. So the timing has been put back a bit because they've had one or two launch issues with rockets and things, both in America and in Russia. So his launch, his liftoff up to the space station is not until December. He will be up there for 6 months, approximately. And as I say, doing a lot of educational outreach, including which will be a number of schools contacts. Now, ARIS and schools contacts using amateur radio. Again, does everybody know what's been happening over the years? So the difference this time is that we hope to have HAMTV as well. Now, separate to the Tim Peake mission has been a lot of HAMTV development of hardware up there, which I will talk about in a moment. But there's some UK Space Agency pictures and slides that show how proud they are and how proud we should be to have a British astronaut up on the space station, as I say, for the first time. The UK Space Agency's interest is primarily educational outreach to encourage future generations to be interested in science, and there's this acronym STEM, science, technology, engineering and mathematics, and amateur radio courses very close to all of that. As I've said, he's the first British European Space Agency astronaut, so we're quite proud of that. Outreach both to general public and formal education, and again, as I've mentioned, for STEM outreach. So what were the RSGB and AMSAT UK doing about this? The RSGB being the National Radio Society, AMSAT UK being the satellite fraternity there. There was not very much educational outreach capability available at the RSGB, it says here. I don't know who wrote that, I didn't. And they've managed to decommission GB4 Fun, which previously had been used for some of the school contacts. So subsequently if I put an AMSAT UK hat on for a couple of minutes, worked with the RSGB to get the contacts going, but the last one we had was way back in April 2009. So there was quite a lot of work had to be done between RSGB representatives and UK Space Agency to show that we had the capability to run these schools contacts. So Tim Peake's doing a tremendous number of different educational outreach things, one of which is amateur radio. So they've got, they had a competition, no, it wasn't a competition, but schools could send in applications. There was an application system earlier this year. If you wanted to have a radio contact with the space station, with Tim Peake, you had to fill in forms and make an application. And it was the call sign they're using is GB1SS. As well as playing amateur radio, that's a horrible expression, can you delete that from the stream? As well as using amateur radio for educational outreach, he's also taking a Raspberry Pi up there, of course, so it's called Astro Pi. It's not like a Pi I've ever seen. I should have put a photograph up, but it's a milled aluminium box with a whole matrix of LEDs on it, so it looks really good. So there's a Raspberry Pi going up there, or two. Actually, there's a spin-off in that. Hopefully, that Raspberry Pi will, after he's left this station, be used to generate pictures which could be downloaded via the HAMTV transmitter. And Jean-Pierre mentioned to me yesterday there's also a plan to use it as a transmitter, I believe, the Astro Pi, which is really good. So we should hopefully have some ongoing activity from the space station as a result. Goonhilly's name is up there because as well as our own ground stations, when we do schools contacts, we take a VHF, historically a VHF radio there, put up the aerials, do pure amateur radio on 2 meters, talk to the space station. The kids ask sort of 20-odd questions. With HAMTV, it's going to be quite a bit more difficult. The link budget's not as good on 2.4 gigs. There's a whole load of constraints. The antennas, as you'll see, are fairly directional. Anyway, we hope to get 6 or 7 minutes of each pass. Each pass is about 12 minutes maximum at site, using our own mobile TV ground station. But if that doesn't work too well, or if the site is particularly bad, we're planning on using Goonhilly. Now, Goonhilly is known to, I think, everybody in the room. It's the old BT site. It's now run by a private organisation. Lots of the dishes are still there. Some of the dishes that are still there are working, and there's some new dishes still being installed there, and including of which there's a 3.8 metre dish that we've been promised access to, which they guarantee will move fast enough. Obviously, the ISS moves from horizon to horizon quite quickly because it's very low. So they promised us that it will be able to track the ISS. So we're going to have a backup station, or maybe the primary station will be at Goonhilly. Some nice pictures of Tim Peake holding Sir Isaac Newton's book or treatise called Principia, The Principles of Gravity, outside Royal Academy, I think. And there's a real sort of patriotic picture. Sorry, Jean-Pierre, I do apologise. I mentioned that he's doing lots of other stuff. There's a whole load of school stuff for different stages. AstroPi, I've also mentioned before. I think you can't really, no, that's not the one that's encapsulated in the aluminium box. Rocket science, space dinners, EO detective, don't know what that means. Space to Earth challenge. It's doing a whole load of stuff for schools, for different age groups as well. Train like an astronaut, robotics, drama, more. So there's tons and tons. Amateur radio is just going to be one of his activities. Now the schools have been selected. There's 10 schools have been selected. In theory, excuse me. In theory, during the 6 months he's up there, he's only allowed 6 schools contacts. We're hoping very, very much that we'll be able to stretch that 6. To all 10 of those schools. Not sure, probably in the back you can't read them, unfortunately. The furthest one north is Ashfield Primary, and Derby High School is not in Derby, by the way. There's some real confusion here. That's in Bolton in Lancashire. Equally, Sandringham School, which I fondly thought was in Norfolk somewhere, it isn't. It's somewhere near St Albans. Those are the ones that have been selected. What we've got to do is go and do a survey of them, particularly for the HAMTV side, work out where all the equipment's going to go and what the visibility of the sky is like, whether they're surrounded by multi-storey buildings or what. Now, talking of the space segment, I think you've probably seen this picture before. That's a illustration of the transmitter. The HAMTV transmitter is sitting in the Columbus module. It was developed primarily by AMSAT Italy, and I don't know quite how it evolved, but it was suddenly there were opportunities to provide this equipment and get it up there. Now this is sort of, I don't know, a kilo or 2 or 3 kilos. To actually get permission to up mass 2 or 3 kilos to the space station is like gold dust. To get a commercial company to build the equipment to meet all the manned space flight regulations, again, was like, that's really, really hard, but somehow magically it happened. So this is a 13 SEM transmitter, an S-band transmitter, digital ATV, 4 different frequencies available, 2 that are below 2.4 and 2 that are above 2.4 gigs. And there are 2 data rates, symbol rates, 1.3 megs and 2, I think. Generally, they seem to be using, for the moment, they've only done tests so far. There's only been one test with a live astronaut talking to camera, but the transmitter has been left on for some months now. It's actually just been switched off this week. Unfortunately, all you get from the transmitter is a blank black to black picture with some data that you can identify that it really is the spacecraft, the space station. So it's not yet been used for an ARIS contact. So we're hoping that Tim Peake's mission will include these TV signals as well, so we'll have another first. So anyway, that's the front of it, all labelled up. Careful with the switches. You see, they in space they don't like to be able to knock the switches, so these are like little pull handles to protect the switches. So if an astronaut falls against it, and of course you've got to have a picture of a really good-looking astronaut. This is actually an Italian astronaut looking very happy right next to the transmitter there. The antennas, where's the, oh, I'm going to use the gun. The antennas are on the bottom of the space station, on the bottom of the Columbus module. That, in theory, those two there, they should be nadir facing. They're patches. I think the next picture just highlights them. That's a close-up picture taken from before launch. They're an L-band and an S-band patch. So they're not obviously omnidirectional, and the tests that we've done in the last couple of weeks suggest that the spacecraft is actually flying at a slight angle, so they are pointing slightly backwards. The signal strength appears fairly late during a pass, climbs to a maximum signal level, and then drops off very gradually as the space station goes over you. So that suggests that the space station is flying slightly that way or whichever way. So what you need to be able to receive the signals, something like a 1 meter dish, a right-hand circular feed, LMB, as-L rotator. Lots of debate about whether the standard Yaesu rotators are accurate enough. The spec would suggest they're not. I think it says in the book for the Yaesu rotator plus or minus 4 degrees. Well, I think that, whether they've got a decimal point wrong or whether the engineer, when he was doing the test, had a really bad day, but I've never seen them work be that bad. Obviously, a 1 meter dish on 2.3 gigs has got a 3 dB beam width of, I'd guess 7 or 8 degrees. So even a 4 degree offset is not going to be too bad if the link budget is good enough. Protection software and a PCB, and a PC with a suitable DVB-S card or USB DVB-S device, and a link to the BATC streamer so we can all see your work. That's one of the best pictures I've seen of the signal coming off the spacecraft. This is Martin VK6MJ. I think that's about 6 or 8 minutes. And again, you can see that the tail, even then, that was, yes, this is actually recent. August, you can see that the tail of the signal it tails off more gradually than it comes on as the pass goes. And finally, oh, that's a nice picture of Goonhilly. I don't know which of these dishes is ours or that we'll be using, but you can see there's a fair number of dishes there, so one of them must be suitable. Mention that we have a ham video mobile reception centre. This is Noel's Land Rover. Well, it's half Noel's and half mine, actually. We've bought it together. We're partners. Isn't that nice? The reason to buy this Land Rover is that it's got an 80-foot pump-up mast in the back. Not that we think we're going to need to pump it the whole way up to 80 feet, but it is a magnificent mast. Sorry? I don't know. It's Noel's the keeper of the vehicle. How do you wash it?
It's a Land Rover. It doesn't go through car wash.
Ah, fair. I know Noel's taken it down to the West Country and done some DATV tests with it, but and the picture there on the left is at the AMSAT colloquium back at the end of July, and the picture in the middle shows the is it a 1 meter dish or a 1.2 meter dish?
But note how that was tracking the sun, of course, Graham.
Oh yes. Look where the shadow is, right in the middle. Are we good? So that's what we're hoping to use at schools. The actual contacts.
Oh, the switched off. Sorry,
Have you?
my apologies.
Good. No worry, Bob. The school's contacts we're not expecting to take place until about February. The orbit of the space station is such that it's a daytime object for half the time and it's a nighttime object for the other half of the time, roughly. The times when it appears over the UK just move along with the calendar. So as most of these QSOs, on the space station they actually keep to UK time, well, UTC anyway, or GMT as they call it. So they really like to have contacts during the day. They are able to do it at the weekend in their own time, but of course most schools want to have these contacts during the working week. So if you say working week, Monday to Friday, the spacecraft, we don't want to do telecontacts, which is where you use probably an amateur station in Australia or Honolulu or something. So we're restricting ourselves by those constraints. So there are sort of 2-week windows every 6 weeks or something like that. So the first contacts are likely to be in February, and the last one's probably in April. So we'll see how that works. That's a pictures from the inside of said vehicle. You can see, I'm not sure, that's detune, I think, isn't that running there? And that's the operating bench, just there. And you get sort of really good pictures from, oh my God.
How did that get in?
How did that get in? I just couldn't resist it. Noel, you better tell everybody what that picture is.
I don't know how that did get in, but that's 146 me. That was a screen grab by Arthur, CPE. I was up on Walbury Easy Loop, and that was about a 95 kilometre 146 meg path. But I guess the point is it's in the Land Rover.
Yes.
That's the point you're trying to make.
And I couldn't resist putting it up, Noel. I'm terribly sorry. That's signals that we received in Noel's back garden, I think, literally. The bit that interests me is that the signal comes up fairly steeply, goes away very gradually, and then I don't know what the elevation was, but it starts to reappear here, either through the trees or in a gap at a fairly low angle. I think that was probably only 5 or maybe 10 degrees of elevation above the horizon. So that suggests to me that we can obviously do better in a better location, clearer location, and we should have good fun, I think, during the contacts. So that's my description of Tim Peake's mission and the amateur TV connection with it. Happy to answer any questions. We're obviously very dependent upon Jean-Pierre for his super software. So please please make Minitune work on the ISS signals. Sometime in the next couple of months, we'd be very grateful, sir. Thank you very much indeed.
You might as well hold the stage and take the questions because
Yeah, okay.
we're on again now. So,
Someone
any
might.
questions on that to begin with?
Has anybody, sorry, I'll take a mic. Thanks. Dave, GHEKQ. Has anybody tried receiving using Yagi aerials rather than dishes?
I don't think so, is the answer. I mean, the dishes are producing something like 27 dB gain, I would guess, a 1 metre dish. And you'd probably be struggling to get that out of a Yagi or even a stack of Yagis. And they've got to be circular polarised as well.
I think Colin at KLB used 90 centimetre offset, wasn't it?
Yes, he has, yes.
And he was surprised how good the margin was. We were surprised how good a margin was.
I mean, the original idea for a TV transmitter on the space station goes back many years to when we were transmitting FM TV and not digital TV. And then the link budget definitely didn't work unless you got an enormous dish. So it was only about 10 years ago that we started talking to various people about having a digital TV transmitter, and Dave Mann and I went and did a presentation. So I think it was just 10 or 11 years ago. So it goes back a while. Jean-Pierre.
Just to say that if you are using the mini tuner with the sharp, you are not obliged to have a down converter. You can directly receive the frequency.
Oh, really?
Yes, so just an LNA is sufficient.
So you just have the LNA into the mini tuner with the sharp, and then.
Yes.
And I didn't realise it went up to 2400.
Only the sharp.
Only the sharp. Oh, that's good news.
And
I've got one.
And for the first question, a station in Italy last year received the HAMTV during 1 minute using just an helix antenna on a fixed tripod.
Oh yes, I did. Yes, okay. Yes, I mean the beam width from the patch antennas is, as I said, not omnidirectional. I think the beam width is about 90 or 110 degrees to the 3 dB point, so it's not covering from horizon to horizon. We'd need 2 or 3 to do that. Good. Okay. Thank you. You've got me twice, I'm afraid. So just bear with me. The next session